Shamayim va'aretz Esa einai El heharim Me'ayin Yavo Ezri
Esa einai
I lift up my eyes to the mountain. Where does my help come from? I lift up my eyes to the mountain. Where does my help come from? You know my help, it comes from God who made heaven and earth. Esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo
Asher malach b'terem hu yitzir nivra le'ed naso v'chefzo kol azay melech shemo nikra ve'al hare
Esa enai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Esa enai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Esa enai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. Esa enai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, y'all.
A plain old Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom from my home to yours.
We begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics, and no services, but we need them. Through prayer, we can sense our inner strength, our inner purpose, our inner joy, our capacity to love. To love God is to love each other. To work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us and to bring that vision to life. Hine ma tov umanaim shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is to be together again.
Oh no.
Hine ma tov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is,
How good it is,
how sweet it is,
how sweet it is
to be together on this day. How good it is,
how good it is,
how sweet it is,
how sweet it is
to be together on this day. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Hine ma tov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is,
how good it is,
how sweet it is,
how sweet it is
to be together on this day. How good it is,
how good it is,
how sweet it is,
how sweet it is
to be together on this day. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Let the light inside of us reflect the light of the Shabbat candles and guide Shabbat into our homes, into our own personal sanctuaries. Lecha Dodi. Join us. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Kabbalat. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Kabbalat. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad Hishmi'anu el ha'muchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad L'shem multiferet v'litila lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Kabbalat. Likrat Shabbat, Lechu v'necha, Ki mekor habaracha. Mirosh mikedem mesulcha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Penei Shabbat Kabbalat Hitorri Kivaore Adonai, Alayich nigla lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Kabbalat. Boi v'shalom, Ateret Bala, Gam besimcha. Am segula boi chala lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Penei Shabbat Kabbalat lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Penei Shabbat Kabbalat. Shalom Malachei HaShalom Malachei Elyon Malachei HaShalom.
Please rise.
Yikadal v'yikadal shmei Rabba Be'omad yivrach yurtei v'yamich malchutei B'chayechon v'yamechon U'chayei dekol Beit Yisrael Bagala bagala U'bizman karib B'imeru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach, Le'al Le'alma Le'almaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, Vishtabach, Vitbar, Vitruman, Vitnase, Vitadar, Vitale, Vitalo, Shemei Jekudasha Brechu, Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata, Tushbechata V'Nechemata, Damim Be'amav, Nimeru, Amen.
Please rise for Baruch. Baruch et Adonai Baruch Adonai
You may be seated.
Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Oreo Valaila, Goleo
Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael, Ohev amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'adecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'elech asher Elohim etzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha Uvlechtecha v'aderech, uv'shachpecha u'kumecha, u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha, v'hayu l'totafot b'neinecha, u'ktavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha, leman tizkeru et hasitem et kol mitzvotai, v'item kedoshim Elohechem, ani Adonai Asher hotzeiti echem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem emet.
For the hardest days. Some evenings, after days when the world feels like it's poured all of its despair onto me, when I am awash with burdens that rest atop my body like a burlap of jostling shadows, I find a place to watch the sunset. I dig my feet into a soil that has rebirthed itself 1,000,000 times over. I listen to the sound of leaves as they decide whether or not it is time to descend from their branches. It is hard to describe the comfort one feels in sitting with something you trust will always be there, something you can count on to remain familiar when all else seems awry. How remarkable it is to know that so many have watched the same sun set before you. How the wind can carry pollen and drop it somewhere it has never been. How the leaves have always become the soil and then become the leaves again. How maybe we are not so different from the leaves. How maybe we are also always being reborn to be something more than we once were. How maybe that's what waking up each morning is. A reminder that we are born of the same atoms as every plant and bird, mountain and ocean around us.
I've been waiting in the velvet sea, whoa. I've been waiting in the velvet sea, whoa. I've been waiting in the velvet sea, whoa. I've been waiting in the, I've been waiting in the, I've been waiting in the velvet sea, whoa. I've been waiting in the velvet sea, whoa. I've been waiting in the velvet sea, whoa. I've been waiting in the, I've been waiting in the Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, norati lo osef ele, norati lo osef ele. I've been waiting in the velvet sea, whoa. I've been waiting in the velvet sea, whoa. I've been waiting in the velvet sea, whoa. I've been waiting in the, I've been waiting in the, I've been waiting in the velvet sea, whoa. I've been waiting in the velvet sea. Whoa, I've been waiting in the velvet sea. Whoa, I've been waiting in the, I've been waiting in the.
More than the Jewish people has kept Shabbat, Shabbat has kept the Jewish people.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל Israel et HaShabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Please rise for tefillah.
Adonai, siflotai tiftachu fi ki tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotinu Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'chonei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, U'mevii Gula Lifnei V'nechem, L'man Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshir U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avracha V'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayim Mitim Atah Rav Le'Oshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Merid HaGashem, V'chachel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechayim Mitim B'Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rafech Olim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mechayim Emunato, L'Shenei Afar, Michamocha Bal Gevurot, U'Midol Melech, Melech Mimitz, U'Mechayim, U'Matzmiach Yeshua, V'nenem Banatah L'Chayot Meitim, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayim HaMeitim, Atah Kadosh B'Shimcha Kadosh, U'Kadoshim B'chol Yom Yahallelu Hasela, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
A Prayer for the Mountains by Fred Chappell. Let these peaks have happened. The hawk-hunted knobs and hollers, the blind coves, blind as meditation, the white rock face, the laurel hells, the terraced pasture ridge with its broom sedge combed back by wind. Let these have taken place. Let them be place. And where rich fork drops uprushing against its tabled stones, let the gray trout idle below, its dim plectrum a shadow that marks a stone's clear shadow. In the slow glade where sunlight comes through in circlets and moves from leaf to fallen leaf like a tribe of shining bees, let the milk-flecked fawn lie unseen, unfearing. Let me lie there too and share the sleep of the cool ground's mildest children.
Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'amcha Yisrael, Amcha Yisrael, U'tefilatam, Ve'ava tekabel. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'amcha Yisrael, Amcha Yisrael, U'tefilatam, Ve'ava tekabel. U'tehi l'ratzon tamid, Avodat Yisrael Amecha. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'amcha Yisrael, Amcha Yisrael, U'tefilatam, Ve'ava tekabel.
Judith Hill. Wage peace with your breath. Breathe in firemen and rubble. Breathe out whole buildings and flocks of red-winged blackbirds. Breathe in terrorists and breathe out sleeping children and freshly mown fields. Breathe in confusion and breathe out maple trees.
Breathe in the fallen and breathe out lifelong friendships intact. Wage peace with your listening. Hearing sirens, pray loud. Remember your tools. Flower seeds, clothespins, clean rivers. Make soup. Play music. Memorize the words for thank you in 3 languages.
Learn to knit and make a hat. Think of chaos as dancing raspberries. Imagine grief as the outbreath of beauty or the gesture of fish. Swim for the other side.
Wage peace. Never has the world seemed so fresh and precious.
Have a cup of tea and rejoice.
Act as if armistice has already arrived.
Celebrate today.
Out our tefillah with the intention of abundant peace. So join together in our anthem of peace, Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adom lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adom lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'neinecha livarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
At this time, we turn our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers to all of those in our midst and beyond who are in need of God's healing presence in their lives. We mention by name these from our congregational families: Chris, Brent, and Dana Argall, Nancy Ash, Mindy Beller, Hanalea Batavora, Amy Cooper, Lee Dills, Richard Eisen, Andrew Fisher, Dean Gavney, Jacob and Roger Gluckman, Gabby Goldberg, Maxine Goldstein, Stuart Goodman, Tom Gosnell, Rebecca Gottesman, Barbara Griffin, Alicia Good, Ramesh Gupta, Agnes Hickey, Bert Horowitz, Laurel and Wally Jonas, Chris Kuntz, Lily Mergentime, Bill Rockamora, Beverly Rosen, Jim Rudisell, Deborah Sanders, Julie Sherman, Shoshana Slatke, Dakota Rose Zeman, Bob Ward, Marlene Wexelblatt, and our hearts go out to all of the families of the victims in Atlanta, as well as all of those who are suffering under the burdens of COVID and all other ways that the human family is suffering. As well, Kevin, are there additional names in the chat?
Mimi Janae, Christine Leslie, Liza, Evie Meinhardt, Jeffrey Weinstein, Gloria Cohen, Joe Johnson, Eileen Siegel, Linda and Katie, Celia and Donald, Linda and Ken, Barbara and Anthony, Sheila Crandall, Carlin Forelli, Pat Cairns, Jimmy Danner, Elise Plyler, Elise Lawrence, Lynn Marlowe, B. Arteta, David Adler, Cindy Vandewart, Brisea Fate, Susan Freeman, Dan Scott.
Avotenu, Abraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. Mishaberach imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, veRachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer. 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 And bless us as well. And bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Mishaberach avotenu, Abraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. Mishaberach imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, veRachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer. 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 And bless us as well. Hear our prayer. Hear our prayer. Hear our prayer. Hear our prayer. And bless us as
One. We pause now for silent prayer.
Adonai,
Adonai,
Tzuri,
Tzuri,
Vegoali, Tzuri,
Tzuri,
Vegoali. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. Yehiyu
Yehiyu,
liratzon
Leratzon,
im refi vegyo libi lefanecha. Adonai,
Adonai,
Tzuri,
Tzuri,
Vegoali, Tzuri, Tzuri, Vegoali.
Kabbalistic tradition teaches that each month in the Jewish calendar has a strong link to a different human quality. And last Sunday night, we entered the month of Nisan, a month that the mystics connected with the quality of speech, namely the act of bringing thoughts and ideas into being. There is a machloket, an argument in the Talmud, between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua as to whether the world was created in Tishrei, the month in which we celebrate Rosh Hashanah, or this month, the month of Nisan, which is also considered the first month of the Jewish year. Generations later, Rabbeinu Tam would harmonize the two views of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua by saying that the creation of the world was conceived by God in the month of Tishrei, but then was actualized in the month of Nisan. And therefore, Nisan is the month in which God spoke, and the idea of the world that God had back in Tishrei became a reality. Because of this, according to one Hasidic understanding, Passover, which falls in the middle of Nisan, represents not only the liberation of the children of Israel, but also the liberation of speech. As slaves, the Israelites could only utter a raw, anguished cry. In freedom, they found a way not only to speak, but to sing, Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Even the name Pesach hints at its quality of speech, because when one parses it into two Hebrew words, Pesach, it means a speaking mouth. And we might learn from this that when we are caught in our egos, enslaved by fear and suffering, it is difficult to speak skillfully, lovingly, or even speak at all. So on Pesach, we celebrate freedom by obligating ourselves to speak a lot, telling our child on that day that with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, God brought us out of the land of Egypt. The question becomes, how do we choose? What words do we choose to tell that story? What needs to be spoken of our slavery and our freedom, keeping in mind that the words that we use will bring ideas into being? Or put another way, in addition to the question, why is this night different from all other nights, A colleague of mine suggests that we ask ourselves, what will be different for me because of this night? There are at least 2 conflicting messages within our Pesach story for us to consider. Naturally, which telling we choose will shape how we see ourselves. If any of you are surprised that there's more than one message, you really shouldn't be. After all, Jews are presented with conflicting messages all the time. Remember the 10 Commandments in the book of Exodus. We're told to remember the Sabbath day, for in 6 days God created the world, and on the 7th day God rested. But then, later in Deuteronomy, the commandment changes to guard the Sabbath day and allow everyone in your midst, even your servants and the stranger, a day of rest. For you were servants in the land of Egypt, and God brought you out from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. So which are we observing now? A Sabbath to honor creation, or a Sabbath to practice liberating ourselves from the wheel of effort and toil? Another confusing set of messages comes from the prophets. Prior to the famous vision, Lo yisa goy el goy cherev, nation shall not lift up sword against nation, nor learn war anymore, Isaiah begins with these equally well-known words, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. But did you know that this verse has its counterpart in the prophet Yoel, who has God saying just the opposite? Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. And these are just 2 examples of mixed messages. Jewish practice is full of contradictions, and the Passover story is no exception. One way we recount our liberation story I'll call the us versus them version. And you can sum it up with, God saved us and drowned the Egyptians. In this telling, we begin with the cruelty of slavery and end on the far side of the Sea of Reeds, triumphantly singing about our God who hurls horse and rider into the depths of the water. It's the story of our becoming free through the lens of pointing out the winners and the losers. It's a triumphalist view of freedom. God wants us to be free, and it doesn't matter who suffered as a result. We pour out 10 drops of sorrow from our 4 full cups of joy, and then bang on the table through choruses of Dayenu, naming the many blessings God showers, especially on us. But a second way of telling our journey from suffering to freedom demands that we reject the us versus them thinking that it is so tempting to sum it up as. And this telling begins with the Pharaoh who knew not Joseph, who feared the Israelites' different ways and worried that they would rise up and overtake Egypt. The same mean Pharaoh tried to crush our people with slavery, but discovered that God is the champion of the downtrodden and hears the cries of the suffering. In this version, in this telling, God brings our people out from under Pharaoh's cruel hand in order that we become a nation who never forgets our experience of slavery. 36 times our people are commanded to love the stranger, not to oppress the stranger, because we know the heart of what it means to be a stranger, having been strangers ourselves in the land of Egypt. When you think about it in this telling, there can be no strangers, no outsiders, because we must know and love the other. Mother Teresa understood this when she famously said, "The problem with the world is that we draw the circle of our family too small." In fact, the root letters of the Hebrew word for family, mishpacha, is shin pei chet, which means to join together, and it also means to pour out. And this is the tension of family. Do we band together as a family or as a tribe in order to include or to exclude. You might even say this telling of the Exodus story starts at the beginning of Genesis, in which humanity is born from the same two people, and as such, we are all mishpacha. And conversely, that all violence is domestic violence. The us versus them version of the Exodus and the no stranger version of our telling live side by side in a sacred tension. And when you think about it, our future depends on which we choose, because the words that we use and the ideas we convey as we recount our Exodus shapes a reality, a piece of the reality that we live by today. A prime example of this can be seen towards the end of the Pesach Seder as we open the door for Elijah. Traditional Haggadot have us say, Shefoch chamatcha, pour out your wrath upon the nations that do not acknowledge you, and upon the kingdoms that do not cry out your name, for they have devoured Jacob and destroyed his habitation. These verses from the Psalms were late additions, included in Haggadot after our people endured waves of persecution and pogroms. As a response to their suffering, these words offered our forefathers and foremothers the opportunity to fling open their doors and curse their oppressors. Maybe they did this in hopes that God would bring them to justice, or maybe it just felt good to lash out at all the haters, the pharaohs of their own time. In a letter to Gandhi, Leo Tolstoy wrote, "Violence is what happens when we don't know what else to do with our suffering." Similarly, these fighting words at the end of the Haggadah have given many pause about what message might better serve that moment in our Seders. Some people choose to reinterpret the meaning of those words, reading them not as a curse, but as a request. Please, God, if there has to be a wiping out, let us not be the ones to do it. Shefoch chamatcha, pour out your wrath and wipe out the evil from this world. Can you please? Instead of reciting Shefoch chamatcha, pour out your wrath, the Kotzker Rabbi, a Hasidic master who was no stranger to his people's suffering, counseled his Hasidim to instead shift the pronunciation to Shefoch chomatcha, which means pour out your warmth to the nations, even those who do not acknowledge you. In a brilliant change of just one vowel sound, a totally different world, a totally different message comes through. And yet in other Haggadot, alongside or instead of these traditional calls for vengeance on our enemies, some have decided that the real antidote to evil in the world is love. And so the paragraph they recite begins, Shefoch ahavatcha, pour out your love upon all the nations. Saying these words, standing in the threshold of our open doors, conveys yet another understanding to today's listeners about the power of our love as a mechanism of our liberation. In the end, Passover is a story of freedom, and we are all free to choose how to tell our story of oppression and subsequent redemption from bondage. My teacher, Rabbi David Hartman, Alav Hashalom of blessed memory, used to give his students a coupon that said, "It's more important to prepare the content of your Seder than it is to clean your house or cook your meal. Decrease your cleaning by 1 hour and devote that hour to thinking about ways to create a participatory and lively Seder." He believed, as I do, that the words that we speak at our Seders create worlds of meaning, Their meaning shapes us and launches us into the work of relieving pain and suffering that we experience and see in our own day. Our Seder tables are the sacred altar for us to weave a story of freedom for the future. May this Pesach we find the words and speak into being the world that we still long for. May we end it by saying, next year in a peaceful Jerusalem, next year everyone in health, next year free from worry and uncertainty, next year surrounded by family and friends, next year feasting, next year rejoicing, next year laughter, next year love, next year singing with other people next to us, singing, next year in abundance, next year with blessings. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. We rise now for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latei gedula liotzer bereshit, shehu asanu kishomrei hadama, vehu sabanu kishlehei haTorah, shehu samchayenu ita, vegoralenu im kol ha'olam.
ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding, love to each of us, for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the whole universe with joy, of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. Thus as has been said, Adonai will be sovereign over all the earth. On that day, Adonai will be one, and God's name will be one.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Our thoughts turn now to all of those who have departed, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and our neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives are a blessing to humanity. We mention by name Louise Krakowitz, the mother of Amy Montoni and mother-in-law of Jeff Montoni, who passed in recent days. We also mention the recent passing this week of Penny Lidekin, sister-in-law of Susan and David Leader, who will be laid to rest this week. We also remember the yahrzeits, the anniversaries of the passings of Penny Apt Bernstein, Ella Gallenbeck-Bain, Thomas Cohn, Jerry Dave, Sidney Deutsch, Abraham Eisen, Horty Field, Phoebe Gould, Beatrice Peck Green, Jack Hirschberg, Solomon Kay, Richard Levitt, Geraldine Levinson, Sharon Kathleen McLean, George Packer, Shirley Richter, Dorothy Seidman, Charles Skolnick, Irving Slatke, Herman Taub, David M. Ullman, Richard Walkoff, and Lillian Wisson. Are there additional names this evening?
Robert Wright and Mary Duffy.
If it is your custom to rise or you are in mourning, please do so as we join together in Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba Be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon u'b'yomechon u'b'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala u'bizman kari v'imru amen Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam u'almei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei d'kudashah brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen Yehei shlama Rabba min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen Oseh shalom b'mramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen.
May I suggest to you, may I suggest this is the best part of your life. May I suggest this time is blessed for you. This time is blessed and shining almost blinding bright. Just turn your head and you'll begin to see the thousand reasons that were just beyond your sight. The reasons why I suggest to you, why I suggest this is the best part of your life. This is a song, comes from the west to you, comes from the west, comes from the slowly setting sun. With a request of you to see how very short the endless days will run. And when they're gone, and when the dark descends, we'd give anything for one more hour of light. And that is why I suggest to you, why I suggest this is the best part of your life. May I suggest to you, may I suggest this is the best part of your life.
Shabbat Shalom. My name is Gaia Goldman. I am here this evening representing the Temple's Board of Trustees. Thank you to Rabbi, Seth, and Kim for the services tonight. And we are thrilled for Dagny Rakov and her family to join us tonight as she prepares to become a bat mitzvah tomorrow morning. Dagny, I have known you for 8 years now. The Rakovs were the first family that the Goldmans met when they moved to Asheville. At the time, you were a sassy, outspoken, rambunctious 5-year-old who wanted nothing more but to follow her big sister and her friends around and be a part of the action. And look at you 8 years later. You have become this amazing young woman, talented singer, accomplished student, athlete, who lives her life with an open heart and is not afraid to take her seat at the table. The world needs more young women like you. So to celebrate, I have some gifts. I will start with the beautiful certificate signed by Rabbi and Seth, which you should have received. This is to remember this occasion and this huge accomplishment. It is suitable for framing, as you know, so I will stop by your home next week to make sure you did that. The second certificate I am going to give you. Oh wait, Sabrina, Isaac, cover your ears. Cover your ears. Dagny, come close. Dagny, I know you've been to Israel already with your family, Rabbi, and the whole temple group, and I know you had a blast. But imagine going to Israel now by yourself. That could be a lot of fun too. A little different but equally as exciting is the gift from Sisterhood. It's a Kiddush cup as a reminder to always, always remember the sweetness of Shabbat. And also from Brotherhood a Tanakh, so you may always continue your Jewish studies. We're so proud of you, Dagny, for reaching this milestone, and we encourage everyone to celebrate with her tomorrow by watching her bat mitzvah at 10 a.m. The links are the same as the ones you clicked on tonight and can be found in your Friday email. That's for live streaming. I have some announcements for you. The Stock Market Madness Challenge registration is in full swing. There is only one more week to get your certificates in. This fundraiser is based on an imaginary stock portfolio that will be tracked over an 8-week period, with many opportunities to win cash prizes and bagels. Please fill out the certificates and send them in, or register online, or call Buffy for extras. Remember, please remember, there is no hard locks this year, and we're counting on everyone's help and participation to meet our fundraising goals. UNCA, in partnership with the Fine Arts Theater, is hosting a watch party of the documentary Shared Legacies, the African American-Jewish Civil Rights Alliance. This is a tremendous opportunity to take part in, and there's more info in the Tuesday email. You can sign up to watch between now and Sunday, and it's free, so we hope you won't miss it. This Sunday, you can join our religious school for a star-studded Passover concert at 10:45 a.m. Zoom link is in the Friday email. Brotherhood lunch is also on Sunday, but at 11 a.m. For those who ordered a lox box, pickup is from 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. at the temple, and the Zoom brunch begins at 11. The speaker is president and owner of the Asheville Tourists. Zoom link is in your Tuesday email. Next Sunday, March 28th at 5 p.m., plan to join Rabbi and Billy Jonas for a festive musical CBHT Second Night Seder livestream. We'll provide everything but the food. Get your table set and log onto the live stream link for a joyful celebration. We hope everyone has a productive week preparing for Passover and clearing your house of chametz. Shabbat Shalom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kasho b'ahava u'ratzon himchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemigrayei kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim ki banu v'charta v'yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha v'ahava uvratzon chimchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat.
L'chaim. L'chaim. Okay, everybody. Touch somebody who's touching somebody who's touching the hollow. All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lachem min haaretz b'te'avon.
B'te'avon, everybody. As Gaia said in her announcements, please join us tomorrow morning as Dagny Rockoff continues to beautifully lead us in prayer. She's going to sing her heart out, and so we're going to end this service this evening with a song about singing our hearts out. Join us, Hava Neshira.
Hava, Hava Nashira, Shir Hallelujah, Shir Hallelujah. 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 Hava, Hava Nashira, Shir Hallelujah, Shir Hallelujah.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.